Okay. And this is my...
Okay.
This side.
Good.
Okay. A pink polo shirt. To me and my family, this was considered a signature of my uncle's collection. Whether it be for something as, something as simple as a family barbecue or something as formal as a wedding, he would always be seen wearing that same damn pink polo shirt. Especially to me, I thought this was really funny because my masculine uncle wearing a color as feminine as pink was just absolutely humorous, but as I got older, it became more or less a symbol of the complex role that pink plays in our society today, which is what I'll be further discussing. I'm incredible to discuss this topic because I've conducted plenty of research into the background of the color, not to mention I've taken plenty of design and color theory classes over the years. You should listen to me because this will make you smarter, as in it will expand your worldview and you will learn a little bit more about color theory. Today I will be first discussing the brief history of the color pink. I will then get into its psychological influence and finally the modern cultural influence that pink has in America. So now that we've talked about that, let's first get into the brief history of the color pink. Pink is a tint of red, as in it is red mixed with white, and it doesn't exist in its naturally on the color wheel, not to mention it's really hard to find in nature. So as a result, pink has up until recently been really hard to manufacture. So similar to purple, it became more or less a color of royalty or wealth. For example, in 18th century Europe, both men and women of the European courts would wear pink to show off how rich they were. So the more they wore it, the richer they were essentially. This was until around the early 20th century when mass production became bigger and pink was easier to manufacture. At that point, pink became more or less a color that both little boys and little girls would wear because it could be both masculine with darker or deeper colors or feminine with the softer colors. This was up until around the 1950s after World War II when President Eisenhower entered office. According to Usna Tarako-Kowalska, who is a Polish professor of architecture, and Przemysław Kowalski, who is a Russian economist, they published an article in the Arts Journal in July of 2023 in which they explained how his wife, Mamie Eisenhower, played a huge role in pink becoming associated with women. Because of her love for it and with the fact that media was booming at the time, many women were able to take notice of the fact that she absolutely loved the color, wore it everywhere, and even painted a room in the White House pink. So as a result, that became a huge trend, especially amongst housewives who had nothing to really do at that point. They were stuck at home now after the war. And so there was this brief and subtle shift in which pink became more associated with women. It became more seen in toys for little girls, and thus became a symbol of femininity. So now that we've talked about the brief background of pink, let's get into the psychology of pink. Pink has always been a very emotional color. According to Mark Elwood, who is a journalist for BBC, he specializes in areas such as design and color theory. He published an article on July 13th of 2022, in which he explained how in the 1970s, a man named Alexander Swash was able to convince a naval detention center to paint the walls of their cells Baker Miller pink, which according to him was the most soothing color imaginable. And this turned out to be completely true, as to this day many rooms, including business meeting rooms and even locker rooms, paint their walls Baker Miller pink because it's supposed to be the most soothing color. So as you can see, as a whole, we associate colors with certain things, whether that be emotions or even objects in our head. For example, when you look at an object, within the first 20 seconds of looking at it, you will notice one of the first things, if not the first thing that you will notice, is the color of it, showing how important it is to us. So now knowing all of that, you should know that pink is associated with mainly three things. 1, kindness, 2, love, and 3, femininity, as I've discussed. So now that we've talked about the psychological influence of pink, let's get into its cultural influence in American society. Pink plays a huge role in gender stereotypes, as women are more associated with pink and generally it's less acceptable for men to wear it. According to Xu Zhibin et al., which is a group of professors in China at a design college, they published an article in the Journal of Retailing and Consumer Services in January of 2024, which they explained how when it came to clothing, if children got a choice, they would most likely choose clothing that either the adults in their life influence or that their peers influence, showing that we as people, even from a young age, really care about what society tells us, which further explains why pink is a color that is still heavily associated with women, because we care so much. So for example, an adult will enforce on a girl to wear pink or a boy to wear blue, and then that will create a cycle as they get older that the child will proceed to influence as an adult. Pink in pop culture is also a huge feminine symbol. As you can see, for example, Barbie is heavily associated with hot pinks, and even Hello Kitty is associated with softer pinks. Even some music genres, such as pop, can be heavily associated with pink because of this feminization of certain things, showing how important pink has become as a feminine symbol. So now that we've talked about the cultural influence of pink, let's finally wrap things up. Today we've discussed first the brief history of the color pink, then its psychological influence, and finally the modern cultural influence of pink in America. According to Jack T.M. Davis et al., which is a group of psychology professors who specialize in gender studies, they published an article to PubMed Central on January 21st of 2021, in which they explained how when it came to certain cultures, they associate colors with different things. So as Americans, we associate pink with femininity. So in another lifetime, for example, in like a third world country, they don't have as much access to Western media, so they don't see pink necessarily as a feminine color, because that's just not how they are as a society. So in another lifetime, if I hadn't grown up as an American, I would have looked at my uncle's pink shirt and I wouldn't have seen it as a color of femininity or something funny, but more or less the fact that he was just wearing the same shirt over and over again.